Hello, I'm Chernobyl. This video showcases me playing Touhou 10, Mountain of Faith, on Lunatic. I'm quite happy to show this playthrough, because it took me a lot of effort to complete it. For those of you who might be less familiar with Touhou, it's my favorite game series. It's a bullet hell game, meaning that it's a shooter game characterized by intricate patterns of bullets, where you have to dodge N bullets at a time, for large N. I'm playing as Reimu Hakure, the Shrine Maiden. Specifically, I'm playing as Reimu equipped with her homing amulet, because I enjoy having a homing shot type, even if this shot type only deals modest damage. Now this girl here is Aki Shizuha, a goddess of autumn, and the stage 1 mid-boss. She attacks with leaves of the canonical autumn colors. Now since stage 1 is relatively simple, let me clarify how resources work in Mountain of Faith. I have two resources, lives and power. Lives are indicated by the stars on the right hand side, and power is indicated by the number underneath. Whenever I press X to use a bomb, I become invincible for a short period of time, but I also lose 1.0 power, which makes my shot weaker. I can regain power by collecting the red power item. Now this girl here is Midoriko. She is Shizuha's sister, a goddess of harvest, and the stage 1 boss. She attacks Reimu because Reimu says that she smells delicious. Maybe she's afraid that Reimu wants to eat her. And heck, maybe Reimu does want to eat her. Her first spell card, Fall Sky in a Maiden's Heart, has lots of gaps in each ring, but it's important to pick the gap which is not blocked by yellow bullets, because those bullets are quite big. Her two non-spells are pretty similar to each other. I find it helpful to only move in one direction on each wave. And her final spell card, Promise of the Weak God, can kill me pretty suddenly, especially if the lasers spawn on top of me. So I'm going to use a bomb here to be safe. I can always regain the power later. And that's the end of stage 1. Suddenly, the music and scenery grow darker to announce that it's stage 2. Reimu is now traversing a forest at the foot of the Yokai Mountain, where yokai means monster. She is headed to the top of the mountain because another shrine, a competitor, just settled up there. That shrine basically issued a declaration to Reimu, saying you can't compete with them, so just give up. But Reimu, of course, won't have any of that. So on her way up, she meets this girl here, Hina Kageyama, a curse goddess. Hina cherishes humans, so she warns Reimu to turn back because a human like her has no business on a yokai mountain. But hey, you know what they say, attempts to scare humans away won't work on Ray Ray. Anyway, biorhythm of the curse god is not as bad as it looks, but I'm going to bomb it because, well, I should mention that Mountain of Faith is the most generous Touhou game when it comes to bombs. So if you ever find yourself in a pinch, don't hesitate, just go bombs away. And speaking of bombs, Touhou's explosive popularity on the internet can be attributed to its colorful cast of characters and its mesmerizing music. Hence, you could say that the boss fights are often the main attraction of Touhou games. However, in addition to the boss fights, each game has several death fairies, like this one, who are memorable in their own right. This one's not too bad, but you have to be diligent about changing lanes, or else you will get stuck. And here comes Hina again, this time as the stage 2 boss. Hina opens with a straightforward non-spell, where the lanes are pretty well defined. Her first spell card is Broken Charmer of Protection. In this spell, it's important to look ahead and make only minimal movements, like that. Just don't panic, and because sudden movements can kill you. Her second non-spell looks a lot like her first, but it's much, much harder. So I'm not going to take any chances, I'm just going to bomb it. Hina's second spell card is Lady Organized Fire. This one has an inconsistent difficulty level, but in general you want to go through the wall of fire that is the thinnest. And notice how Hina is spinning while she's fighting. This interesting mannerism of Hina's has earned her the adoration of many fans. Hina's last spell card is Wounded Sign Exile Dole. This spell starts off very easy, but it gets harder as the lanes become blurred and the pellets start to clutter up your space. I bombed it, because eventually it got too cluttered. Now, I haven't died once here. I haven't died once yet in this run, which makes me quite happy, and hopefully this will continue into Stage 3. I just love the way that Stage 3 begins. With the vivid colors and the beautiful music the Gensoku the Gods love, it feels like I'm stepping into Shangri-La, and I'm being overwhelmed by the majesty of nature, you know? Now, unfortunately, nature in these parts of the Yokai Mountain is more dangerous than majestic. In this stage, you will see me do a lot of preemptive shooting, that is, shooting down enemies before they get a chance to do too much against me. I had to do this because if I don't, they will flood my screen with bullets and I will be sad. In fact, here is a key section where preemptive shooting really makes a difference. So, it's definitely preferable to be at high power when you enter this section. Unfortunately, even with 4.65 power, I failed to shoot them down preemptively, and I'm cornered, which means I have to expend a bomb. Well, at least it was only one bomb, and not two bombs, not a bombo combo. Nitori here is very startled. Ack! A human?! That reaction is always priceless. Nitori Kawashiro is a kappa. No, not the Twitch emote. She's part of this species of yokai called kappa. She briefly retreats to put on her camouflage suit, but it's not enough to fool Reimu's finely honed Shrine Maiden instincts. Nitori runs off, dropping an extra life. By the way, this game rewards you with extra lives at 20 million, 40 million, 80 million, and 160 million points. Furthermore, stages 3 and 5 also reward you with an extra life after the mid-boss. So effectively, you have a total of 8 lives to work with. Now that seems like a large budget, but believe me, it's not. Especially not on Lunatic mode. This section here has more preemptive shooting. It's reminiscent of a similar section in Touhou 6, Embodiment of Scarlet Devil. Specifically, I'm thinking of Stage 4, the library. And these 4 fairies here, well, they can trap me if I don't read ahead enough. And in fact, that's exactly what happened. So, now we get to fight Nitori, the Stage 3 boss. Nitori's first non-spell is just about finding the right lane. The lanes are very straightforward. Her first spell card is called Trauma in the Glimmering Depths. Kind of a spooky name. In here, there are pockets of safety that are shaped like eyes. And once you're inside this eye-shaped pocket of safety, all you have to do is make small horizontal movements to dodge. Overall, it's a pretty relaxing spell card, I would say. My capture rate on this one is pretty high too. Nitori's second and third non-spells are pretty similar to each other. They're both about getting habituated to the right rhythm of moving left and right. If you have trouble with those, practice mode is really great to get used to the rhythm. Nitori's second spell card is Great Illusionary Waterfall. The difficulty is inconsistent, but generally you want to seek for the largest gaps proactively. Unfortunately, I had to use a bomb. Nitori's last spell card is Spin the Cephalic Plate. This spell card is interesting because dodging the green rings is easy, and dodging the pellets by themselves is also easy. But dodging rings and pellets at the same time is what makes this spell card terrifying. And unfortunately, I'm forced into a situation where I had to do exactly that, which means I use a bomb. Alas, I don't have a mountain of faith in myself. Okay, I deserve capital punishment for that one, don't I? Ha. This waterfall, not to be confused with the location in Undertale, is the hardest stage. Reimu calls this stage the main event, and by Kanako, is she correct. Many of my runs were ruined by stage 4, but this run is actually going really well, so well that my hands are shaky. As a result, I will bomb liberally when fighting these several death fairies, who usually are not too hard to handle. This streaming section can be done using a clever turn, but I failed at executing it because I was too slow. You can watch how Zoom handles this section in the game's sample replays. To view the sample replays, go to the title screen and don't press any buttons for a few seconds. This first death of the run was quite jarring to me because I did not expect it. In general, a good skill to have in Touhou is knowing how bomb-friendly different attacks are. Some attacks will let you know when you're about to die, whereas other attacks will kill you out of the blue. Here comes Momiji Inubashiri, a wolf tengu that the fandom often misrepresents. Her bullet patterns are shaped like the Japanese hiragana character no, because if I don't spend a bomb or two, I have no chance of escaping her alive. This section looks like the one from earlier, but I actually don't know of a good way here to turn that doesn't use the X button, which is unfortunate. Here the crows will drop a lot of point items, but don't be too greedy in collecting them, because you have to be ready and not out of position for the rapid streaming that follows. I have died that way far too many times, believe me. After these fairies, who are not too much trouble, I will have the honor of fighting 3 death fairies consecutively. That's a challenge that usually eats up 2 bombs. But this time, miraculously, Reimu was able to escape the waterfall using merely 1 bomb. However, I am very low on power. Ooh, that's a very nice dodge. And as a result of being low on power, this section with the crows, which is usually trivial, is actually unexpectedly hard. This causes me to die, in a way that I would never have expected at higher powers. But, at least, stage 4 is almost over. Here comes Shameimaru! Aya Shameimaru is a crow tengu, a journalist who is surprisingly friendly to humans, and the stage 4 boss. My strategy for Aya's first non-spell is to bomb. Aya's first spell card is Saruta Cross. My strategy for Saruta Cross is to bomb. Aya actually doesn't really want to fight Reimu here, but her position within Tengu society leaves her with little choice. Luckily, this means that she's not going all out on me because, and having seen what she can accomplish in other Touhou games, I'm glad, because I know she's incredibly powerful. Aya's second spell card is Storm Day. My strategy for Storm Day is to bomb. You know, when I ended stage 3 with no deaths, I thought, wow, this was a phenomenal run! But then I died 3 times in stage 4, and now I'm just thinking, there are dreams that cannot be, and there are storm days we cannot weather. My strategy for Aya's third non-spell, which is her most tame non-spell, is to bomb. And here comes Peerless Wind God, the only timeout spell of the game. I'm very proud to say that I actually captured this once in my lifetime. But usually my strategy here is to bomb. And bomb again. Aya's final spell card is Terukuni Throughout the World, and my strategy for this is to actually do it. Surprise! Aya also has a really kick-ass theme, Wind God Girl, which unfortunately does not appear in this game, but it does appear in Shoot the Bullet as well as in Phantasmagoria of Flower Theme. Also, I was kidding earlier, I bomb. Aya, why you do this to me? Even after all that, Reimu's troubles are far from over. Right off the bat in stage 5, I try to shoot down these fuzzballs preemptively, but I die trying to do so because my power is too low. One of the issues of this game, and also Touhou 11, Subterranean Animism, is that when I drill the stages in practice mode, I start off with a pretty high amount of power. But that's not going to happen in an actual run, where a tough boss fight, like that Aya fight, is going to leave me with hardly any power. Now, Reimu is approaching the shrine at the peak of the mountain, namely the Maria Shrine. It turns out that the Tengu society isn't particularly fond of these newcomers with a holier-than-thou attitude, which is why they did not make a more concerted effort to stop Reimu. A big theme in this stage is streaming with proper timing. For example here, I time my stream so that I turn when a gap will appear in the volley of yellow bullets. This is Sane Kochiya of the Maria Shrine. She is the stage 5 mid-boss and Reimu's rival as a shrine maiden. A running gag among fans is that Sane is to Reimu as Luigi is to Mario. This spell card, secretly inherited art of Danmaku, is doable if you avoid the densest areas. But sadly, even though it's doable, I do die here. And not only do I die, I even have to use a bomb after dying. You know, I'm not a yokai, Sane. You don't have to go that hard on exterminating me. After Sane leaves, she drops an extra life, like I said earlier. And in this section, you see once again that I stream while maintaining the timing of my turns such that I kill each wave of fuzzballs as they appear, so that they don't prevent me from turning. This Death Fairy is fairly tame, but her attack patterns remind me of Kanako's attack patterns. Personally, I find it really clever how Zune puts these illusions in the bullet patterns. I think it's very smart game design for him to do that. And now we get to fight Green Reimu, as I like to call her. Green Reimu has much easier non-spells than Aya, but her spell cards are just as worthy of bombs. Her first non-spell looks a lot like blue Cheetos, so I call it the Cheetos attack. It's important to read ahead and not get walled here, because these Cheetos are really quite big. Sane's first spell card is Overly Bright Guest Stars. This is a spell that gets much harder from hard to lunatic. So much harder that I often bomb it twice. In theory, it shouldn't be that bad, just to go from side to side. Sane's second non-spell isn't too intimidating either. It's just a matter of going from side to side at the right time and using vertical space. Her second spell card is Moses' Miracle. This is probably her hardest spell card, and it's also very thematic, because her power as a Shrine Maiden is to invoke miracles. Although, really her greatest miracle is managing to star in so many Touhou games after this one. Get it? Star? Ha! This non-spell is very straightforward, just have to move from left to right. Summon Taki Minakata is Sane's third spell card. It's manageable if you macro dodge the blue bullets while micro dodging the red bullets. Unfortunately, it still causes my 6th death this run. I know from experience that I have virtually no chance of beating stage 6 with 1 life, but I do have a non-zero chance of beating it with 2 lives. Therefore, even though Yasaka's Divine Wind, Sane's last spell card, is her most reasonable spell card, I'm going to bomb it, to ensure that I enter the last stage with 2 lives. Although my performance in stage 5 was subpar, with a total of 3 deaths, I'm trying my best not to let that bad performance get to my head, because I know that I will need every ounce of concentration for stage 6. As per the Touhou tradition, stage 6 is extremely short, to compensate for an arduous boss fight ahead. Reimu is now heading to the lake, behind Maria's shrine, in order to find the shrine's executive director, if you will, and have a word with her. This fairy can be dodged by standing slightly off the center, and although it's possible to survive all these puzzles by streaming, it's easier to just bomb, because they drop a lot of power. I mean, just look at all that power. Here once again, I elect to bomb rather than attempt streaming, because I really want this run to count. This last Death Fairy of the game drops 2.20 power upon defeat, so you can rest assured that you will be at full power, or at least nearly full power, before the boss. And I definitely need it. Here she comes, the goddess of Maria's Shrine, Kanako Yasaka. Kanako is like Sam from Undertale. She opens up right away with her hardest attack. Yeah, that's her hardest attack. I am lucky when this non-spell eats up only 1 bomb. Metoteko Boisterous Dance is Kanako's first spell card. It's actually surprisingly easy for a stage 6 spell. You just have to misdirect the blue amulets to go off to the side, really far off to the side. And that way, when you go back to the center, they won't be blocking your way. These red pillars are called Onbashira, by the way. Kanako's second non-spell also involves left to right motion, which is very rhythmic. Just don't do anything funny, like go out of your way to collect the items that she drops. Kanako's second spell card is Divining Crop. This one can cause a lot of clip damage, so I bought it. Here's a fun fact. This spell is called God's Rice Porridge in easier modes, and this comical name is referenced in the song Caro 9 Destiny by Silverport. I might add, it's an extremely catchy song. In this non-spell, you want to draw figure 8, like I'm doing here. And in Yamato Taurus, Kanako's third spell card, the screen becomes like a torus. Or a mug, if you study topology. It's helpful to dodge only one wave of knives at a time. And it's possible that my bomb there was unnecessary, but really that's just a small loss. This non-spell is Kanako's last non-spell, and it has 3 phases. The first 2 phases are pretty easy, but the second phase with the knives is hard, because it requires very precise streaming. This death really puts me on edge, because I know that the number of lives I have going into Virtue of Wind God matters tremendously. If I go into it with 0 lives, I'm almost guaranteed to lose. If I go into it with 1 life, I have some slim chance of victory. But if I go into it with 2 lives, I have a very solid chance of victory. So that death really upset me a lot. But I'm doing my best to take deep breaths and tell all my muscles in my body, plead with them not to shake. Here is Kanako's second to last spell card, Sorcerer Veins. In theory, this spell card shouldn't be too hard. It's just that when you reach the side, you have to make a unfocused movement to create a gap. But maybe it's just me. I just don't get a hang of this spell. Luckily, it only costs me 1 bomb, and that bomb is essentially free, because here I will regain full power. This is it! Virtue of Wind God. Virtue of Wind God is Kanako's last challenge. It's the only thing stopping me from a Lunatic 1cc. Since the spell drastically gets harder as Kanako loses health, my strategy is to use no bombs until her health is halfway depleted. Then, my strategy switches to bombing whenever I have even the slightest chance of dying. I have to say that this is one of the hardest final spells in all of Touhou. It's harder than Utsuho's final spell, it's harder than Byakuren's final spell. The only spell I can think of that's harder than this one is Junko's final spell in Touhou 15, Legacy of Lunatic Kingdom. And that one, even though it's harder, still consumes fewer resources, because the hard section is shorter. At this point, I know that I might be able to do it. I'm doing amazingly well here. I'm doing really well. I think I'm gonna do this. Fudge! I'm okay. I still have 3 bombs. She barely has any life. I still have 2 bombs and she barely has any life. 1 bomb now. And there goes my last bomb. No regrets. Die! Kanako, damn it! Die already! Die! Die! Yes! Got him! And that's my very close 1cc of Mountain of Faith on Lunatic. I would like to thank my friends who encouraged me warmly throughout this quest, especially Alice, Kevin, Max, and Mitchell. Lastly, I would like to thank you for watching.